This time on Landmarks, we visit a river from Eden, gaze from a revolving tower, marvel at a true wonder from the past, and Spider-Man does it again in China. But first,
800 years of the tower's history as a state prison. It's involved people being kept in luxurious state apartments, being allowed out even of the tower during the day, but also, of course, down to quite grim conditions of close confinement, what we'd call now solitary imprisonment.
there are grim reminders of the tools of death everywhere. However, there are some happier endings. An English earl managed to escape in 1711, disguised in this woman's cloak.
One of the threads that runs through this is what I would call political imprisonment. So in the medieval period, this is stories about regime change and ending up on the wrong end of a dynastic feud.
Some were kept here before trial or to await execution.
One of the great, if you like, pieces of mental torture of being kept at the tower was not so much the conditions in which you were kept. As we said, if you were a noble, you'd probably have a set of rooms, maybe a library, maybe your servants and even your family with you, as Sir Walter Raleigh had. But the uncertainty of not ever knowing when you'd ever be released.
As well as the more gruesome exhibits, like this executioner's sword, the exhibition includes some private items, like the prayer books of Henry VIII's doomed wife, Anne Boleyn. The exhibition transcends the merely melodramatic to give a better understanding of the rich history of London's ancient fortress. The beefeaters are not the only continuous inhabitants of the tower. Ravens have occupied this site for more than 400 years. Legend has it that at least 6 ravens must guard the site at any one time, otherwise the tower and the monarchy will fall. Hardy has been on guard for the past 21 years, his claws and beak still sharp.
No, Hardy's 25 now. He was presented as a 4-year-old and he came from Dorset. But he's been in the tower now for 21 years. And I thought, a long-time serving resident, it's about time we marked it through with some occasion.
Hardy is one of 7 birds who currently guard the buildings. They've had their wings clipped so they can't fly away. The legend of the tower lives on. Coming up, the Tigris River. Plunging under the olive-green surface of the ancient Tigris River, worshippers from an obscure sect emerge spurting water from their mouths. Shrugging off concerns of environmentalists, white-robed worshippers of the Sabir Mandaean nation, a relic of the ancient Gnostic religions, took their weekly dip in the Tigris to purify their souls. To members of the Sabir Mandaean nation, the river's contents are of little concern. In biblical times, the Tigris River was believed to have been one of the 4 rivers to have flown from the Garden of Eden. The fast-flowing river, along with its slower sister river, the Euphrates, flows from the mountains of Turkey down to Iraq. In the book of Genesis, the prophet Daniel was said to have received his visions on its banks. Today, despite the hardships of tyranny and war, many locals still find treasure among its troubled waters. Before the country was thrown into turmoil, an army of artisans conducted a flourishing gold industry from workshops located along the banks of the river. Some of the finest jewellery in the Middle East was to be found here. It was not unusual for shavings or splinters of gold to be discarded during the manufacturing process, and it was common practice for the workers to throw the unwanted and worthless fragments into the river. But now, those pieces have a real value to a community that struggles desperately to find an income to buy the essentials of life. But like much of the war-ravaged country, the Tigris is now choking with modern-day pollution that researchers say puts millions of Iraqis at risk. A little way downstream, the extent of the desecration is revealed. A toxic cocktail gushes into the river as it flows through the Iraqi capital of Baghdad. Experts from the Iraqi government and environmental groups had hoped to conduct the first survey of the section flowing through Baghdad since the US-led invasion in 2003. But river police stopped them short, citing security concerns. At first, gently flowing waters might seem like a haven from the traffic jams snarling Baghdad, but the river's appearance belies unsavoury contents.
We formed this project to go down the river and just do the first environmental assessment, just more like a pre-assessment of the river. We face many problems, but I think that if people start to pay more attention to the river, then they'll be able to improve it, clean it up. There are people who swim in the river, there are people swimming behind us, and they should be able to swim in a clean river, and we should be able to drink out of a clean river.
It was not always that way. Iraqi researchers date the start of the decline to Saddam Hussein's war with Iran in the 1980s, when government funds were diverted to the army. Sanctions imposed after the 1991 Gulf War further crippled facilities before looters stripped sewerage works, along with other government facilities after Baghdad fell in 2003. US officials say they are working as fast as they can to restore services, but blame the lack of progress on security. Heavy metals found in the water have raised concerns they may enter the food chain and perhaps cause cancers in humans.
We are going to take samples from different places and then take them and analyze them. After that, there are limits. If it is over limits, we will find out what degree of pollution there in the Tigris.
Over several thousand years, this river has seen many civilizations rise and fall, and many conflicts come and go. One day, the 21st century Iraq War will be just another memory. Of the many landmark projects celebrating the new millennium, a Scottish city produced one that was unique. The tower at the Glasgow Science Centre is the world's first capable of revolving through 360 degrees from the ground up. Standing at over 122 metres in height, the entire building not only senses wind direction, but automatically rotates to the correct direction to minimise the wind's impact. The slender structure includes a viewing platform that can give views of more than 60 kilometres to the north and south. From across the River Clyde, the area looks more like a sculpture park than a science park. The site of almost 12 acres is surrounded on 3 sides with water. The Glasgow Science Centre, a £75 million sterling project, is a celebration of Scotland's historic legacy of scientific achievement. The buildings are the first in the UK to be clad in titanium.
Titanium is an expensive material, but in this situation we've rolled it very, very thin to provide a protective coating over the surface. We chose titanium because this is a science centre and we felt that was very appropriate in terms of science and technology. It is a very innovative material. It's used in many forms in terms of parts of the body and sports equipment, industrial uses, and now more recently architectural. And we felt this was quite an appropriate material to use as an exhibit in itself for this type of building.
The Glasgow Tower, originally known as the Millennium Tower, was the winning design in an international competition to find a tower for the city centre. Spread over 4 floors, the Science Mall is the nerve centre of the complex. It incorporates 4 theatres, a science show theatre, a multimedia theatre and a virtual reality theatre. Then there's the planetarium-style space theatre. Glasgow's historic sister city, Edinburgh, hosts another major Millennium project, Dynamic Earth. It's been developed as part of the regenerated Holyrood area. Formerly occupied by an historic brewery, it interfaces with the landscape of the city's World Heritage Site in the Old Town. Offsetting its natural rugged surroundings, the building has smooth, flowing curves and taut, minimal cables and masts. Although weather-tight, the fabric roof and glass walls give the feel of an outdoor space. The building combines the very latest interpretive technology and special effects with cutting-edge scientific thinking. Dynamic Earth tells the story of the planet through 11 state-of-the-art earthscapes. A journey around the planet Earth takes the visitor back through time to witness the Big Bang, experience earthquakes, ice ages and tropical rainstorms. It's thrilling entertainment, says Chief Executive Julia Fawcett.
Dynamic Earth is a visitor attraction that tells the story of the planet, everything from the moment that the universe was created through to the future that we don't yet know. But in telling the story, it provides the visitor with 90 minutes of thrilling entertainment.
Another element that makes Dynamic Earth eye-catching is the monumental forecourt in the shape of an amphitheatre that can be used for outdoor performances. Like its neighbours, the Palace of Holyrood House and the new Scottish Parliament, which use architecture to suggest political evolution, so the Dynamic Earth project uses architecture to connect natural history to human and civic life. On several levels, Dynamic Earth has been an outstanding success. It's provided Edinburgh with a science-based educational attraction, whilst at the same time promoting the city as being an all-year-round destination for tourists. Coming up, Abu Simbel. When Pharaoh Ramesses II carved 2 temples out of solid rock at a site on the west bank of the Nile, the sun gods Amun-Ra and Ra-Horekti blessed them with an abundance of light. South of Aswan in the land of Nubia, they are known today as Abu Simbel. In front of the facade of Ramesses' temple are 4 colossal seated figures of Ramesses. At the top are the Watchers of the Dawn. The Egyptians believed baboons played a role in helping the sun god Ra defeat the darkness of night. But like many of civilization's great achievements, Abu Simbel eventually fell into decline and disappeared. Built in the 13th century BC, this magnificent Egyptian complex remained buried and forgotten for more than 1,000 years. The temples were rediscovered in 1813 and first explored a few years later. The actual interior of the temple is inside the cliff in the form of a man-made cave cut out of the living rock. It consists of a series of halls and rooms extending back a total of 60 metres from the entrance. The first long hall is 18 metres wide and 19 metres deep and has 2 rows of ossuarid statues of Ramesses, each 30 feet high. From this room, a doorway leads to the vestibule, and beyond that is located the innermost shrine with seated statues of the gods Ptah, Amun-Ra, the deified Ramesses II and Ra-Horekti. Abu Simbel was made famous when UNESCO took the complex apart in the mid-1960s and rebuilt it 60 metres above the rising waters of the reservoir. In 2002, Egyptian authorities finally finished repairs, which in some cases took 40 years to complete. In 1996, Egypt launched a project in cooperation with the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organisation, UNESCO, in response to rising temperatures and humidity within the massive rock-hewn temple of Ramesses II. The temple is now protected by new ventilation shafts and a lighting system, but the restoration has been carried out with great sensitivity.
We don't want all these beautiful colors to be affected in any way. And of course, also inside the temple, you have this kind of lighting so that you can see the temple day and night.
Attracting tourists to the temple is now a priority.
Now we're hoping that now with the sound and light, there's some kind of nightlife, if you like. Now we're hoping for convoys to come in the afternoon. They can spend the night here. We're hoping also for night flights. And in fact, we have 3 hotels now in Abu Simbel. So you can have entertainment in the sound and the light, and you can have entertainment in the hotels, and you have facilities for people to spend the night here.
Abu Simbel is truly a wonder from the past. The determination and skill required to carve such colossal figures from solid rock remains an enduring achievement. It's hoped new restorations will preserve the temple complex for at least another millennium.
And we have discovered that in human works, eternal is only that which makes sense and has value for all mankind. When we are not here anymore, man will continue to come and dream at your feet.
It's time to say hello to an old friend of landmarks, serial skyscraper climber, Frenchman Alain Robert. What he and this program have in common is a passion for monumental landmarks, natural and man-made. This time, dressed in a Spider-Man costume, the tiny daredevil climber scaled the 88-storey Jinmao Tower, China's tallest building, ignoring warnings from police officers below that he was breaking Chinese law. The aerial daredevil, dubbed Spider-Man by media for climbing buildings without ropes, decided to mount the iron and glass structure without permission, after authorities turned down 2 requests.
Now what is difficult is the access, which is another story. So one side of the story is more like James Bond, and the other side is more like climbing a ladder.
Just 1.64 metres tall, or 5 foot 3 inches, Robert has to take risks an average person would find terrifying. In 1999, he worked his way up the 110-storey Sears Tower in Chicago, using a channel on the outside of the building used for window washing equipment. By the time he reached the top floor, clouds had rolled in, partially obscuring the view of his conquest from the street below. The Sears had only recently been overtaken by Malaysia's Petronas Twin Towers as the world's tallest building. He attempted to beat the Malay skyscraper twice, but was arrested during the climb on both occasions. In 2004, he did make it to the top of the world's tallest, the Taipei 101. Robert, who has a wife and 3 children, said he had been nervous and anxious for days before the Sears climb. The Frenchman was arrested by Chicago police after reaching the top of the tower. He was charged with criminal trespass and failure to operate a safety net while performing an aerial show. He said the 90-minute climb up the 443-metre tall towers was more difficult than he had anticipated.
Because there's condensation at the end of the skyscraper, the last 20 story, and for me it was not so easy like I have expected, because it was very, very slippery.
Robert has climbed over 65 buildings around the world, including the Eiffel Tower, London's Canary Wharf building, New York's Empire State Building, and 8 years later, he could not resist climbing the Jinmao to complete his top 4. He said he would keep on climbing buildings as it was a way to demonstrate his free and adventurous spirit to the people.
You know, nowadays the problem is we are trying to live in a world so secure, so safe, and of course, me, this is my own way to show to the people that, sometimes it's good not to follow all the rules, because you're also missing all the fun.
More than 100 onlookers had gathered around the tower after the news of his ascent spread. Many cheered him on as he climbed up to reach the pinnacle before climbing down. I think he must be doing this for a special reason. Maybe he wants to show his love for his girlfriend, or maybe he wants to show his ability and confidence. Police had to cordon off certain areas as well as direct traffic as the crowd looked on. Firefighters were also at hand to spread a safety canvas along the grounds of the tower. As he reached the foot of the tower, he was promptly arrested by police officers who had been waiting for him. Robert said he had consulted lawyers and French diplomats before the attempt, and he expected to face 15 days in custody and a fine of up to 10,000 won for his attempt. But for all of us who keep their feet firmly planted on the ground, Robert is an unorthodox reminder that leaving things up in the air can sometimes be fun.